Hey everybody, mel0n here, welcome back to another video. Over the past month or so, you guys have probably noticed a weird, mysterious mouse pad that I haven't really been talking about too much. There was a clear one, and there was a purple one that you guys have probably seen on my TikToks and my social posts and on stream, of course, quite a lot lately. A lot of people have been asking me questions about it, and I intentionally have not been talking about it because I didn't want to talk about the product prematurely because I wasn't finished all my testing and I didn't want to give a false opinion of a product to people. But it is now officially done. I have finished all my testing. I have been maining this pad for 30 days, and after all this testing and everything I've done and all the stuff I've done, I have to say this is one of the best glass mouse pads I have ever used. It's up there with the Serapad Kin. Like, it is insanely good. And the craziest part about this whole thing is that it's not actually even a mouse pad. It's a serving tray, and it's a serving tray from IKEA. Alright, so this accidental glass mousepad from IKEA is called, well, the serving tray, I should say, is called the VARMBLIXT. Now, I'm definitely butchering that pronunciation. I'm so sorry. I can't figure out how to say Swedish names. You could pick up the VARMBLIXT at IKEA for around 34 Canadian dollars. Now, I managed to get both of my units on sale for 19.99 Canadian dollars. Now, the VARMBLIXT packaging is very lacking. Again, this is packaged to be a serving tray, not a mousepad, so there's no foam, there's no protective buffering on the inside of the pad. The only kind of quote-unquote protection that the pad really has is that the handles are a lot thicker than the actual pad surface, because again, it's a serving tray. So the handles do kind of create this buffer in between the actual surface of the glass and the outside box itself. While it's not a lot, if you do hit it hard enough, you will shatter the glass. So if you do purchase one, be sure to check the box first off to make sure the pad isn't damaged, and obviously be very careful when transporting it around, because if you do hit it at a weird angle, there's a very good chance you could actually break the glass. Now, the keen item among you may have noticed, hey, mel0n, there's handles on this. That's going to be a bit of a problem, and you are right. Now, one concern I did have with the handles was I thought, okay, well, it's a serving tray. The handles are probably anchored through the glass. Like, there's probably little holes etched in the glass where like a rod or something goes through it to anchor the handles onto the actual glass itself. It turns out this is actually not the case at all. And this is going to be one of the very many accidental design decisions where IKEA I don't even know if they were like cutting a corner, quote unquote, but it actually works out in favor of turning this into a mouse pad because this glass surface itself is actually untouched completely. It is actually a solid sheet of glass. These little handles are actually being held in by these little black threaded stoppers with a little bit of rubber on the bottom, and all they are is just screwed into the handles and they just stick to the glass itself, which is I mean, a little concerning in terms of longevity for an actual handle staying on. But for us, since we're making this into a mouse pad, we don't care about this. This is actually like amazing for us. So all you do is you just grab a hex bit screwdriver, you just unscrew these little things, and you can just pull the handles right off, no problem. And you are left with a 480 millimeter by 340 millimeter sheet of glass that is around 4 millimeters thick. Since the VARMBLIXT is designed to be a serving tray, not a mouse pad, consistency and build quality were a big issue for me because there's not going to be the same level of attention on a serving tray sheet of glass as there will be on a piece of glass that's designed to be a glass pad. So in order to get as much data for this review as possible, I actually ended up purchasing 2 units. I purchased my first one, I tested it, and then I bought another one and I tested that one as well. The build quality and the overall performance between both of my pads were pretty much identical. I would even say borderline the QC was up there with some of the professional grade pads. Now, one oddity I did notice with one of my pads is that one of them had this like white powder on it. It didn't affect the performance at all. I believe it's just residue from the manufacturing process. I just wiped my pad off with a microfiber cloth and it went away completely, and I haven't had any of it come back. So that is one odd thing, but I did want to note it regardless because I did say the QC was perfect, and it's perfect, but there was a little bit of dust on it. So just to be fully transparent. Now, one thing you may have noticed is that one of my VARMBLIXTs are painted and one of them is not. And I just did kind of want to see if painting the base made a difference with the performance, because again, it is thicker glass, it is 4 millimeters. So there is always the chance where some older sensors won't track properly, but I'm happy to say that both of them performed exactly the same with the clear and the painted version. So if you want to leave the base clear, you can do that. If you want to paint the base, you can also do that as well. But there were no differences between the two. It was just a purely cosmetic thing. Now, yet another accidental design decision that IKEA has done to the VARMBLIXT that makes it just such a good mouse pad is the edges. Now, you'll see here the edges on the VARMBLIXT pad are actually like quite well curved, but I will say it's nice to see a little bit of a more of a curve on the VARMBLIXT pad. If you happen to run your mouse off the mouse pad, it's very easy for the skates to glide back onto the surface. Now, again, this is a complete accidental decision. IKEA very much could have just done a 90-degree edge on all these, which honestly I kind of expected them to do so, but for whatever reason they decided to round them. So it's just another accidental design decision that works great for the VARMBLIXT as a mouse pad. Now, the keen eye among you may have noticed that we are missing something from our glass pad here. We are missing base feet, which is a very good point because we took the base feet off when we took the handles off. So you are going to have to supply some kind of base grip of your own. I ended up settling on these very thin 2mm rubber wall stoppers. I put those in the base of my pad. I put one on each corner and one in the middle, and they work really good. Like, this pad does not move. Just keep in mind when you do buy bases for this one, you will need to buy thin ones. Be sure to put them onto the non-textured side. Don't put them onto the textured side. Now let's talk about the most important part of the VARMBLIXT, the surface, or I guess I should say the surfaces. The VARMBLIXT actually has two surfaces. There is a glossy flat glass side, and then there is a textured frosted glass side. Now this flat glass side, the kind of glossy side, this is not the side you want to use as a mouse pad. Flat skates, flat surface is going to be a very high friction environment there, so that is not what you want to use. You want to use this frosted glass side. Now this textured surface is another complete accident from IKEA's side. They definitely didn't intend for this to be used as a mouse pad, and it's just like a generic etched frosted glass surface that's just on the pad. Now one concern I did have about the surface is that, okay, well, what if the surface is uneven? It's exactly the same between my two units. Both of the units are perfectly flat. There is no manufacturing flaws. There's no gaps in the texturing. There's no unevenness in the whole thing. In all my testing across all of my mice, I did not have a single issue with anything mistracking, nothing at all. All my sensors worked flawlessly. Everything worked perfectly. I had zero problems. Since this is a hard surface, any kind of ceramic, glass, or gem skates are going to be off the table because you don't want something that's harder than the actual surface itself. So this is going to be a situation where you want to stick with standard PTFE feet. If you do have glass skates on your mouse, do not use it on the surface because you will ruin the surface and your skates at the same time. Now, in terms of the actual speed of the pad and how it kind of feels, I would put this pad in between like a Serapad Kin and a Skypad or a Pulsar Super Glide pad. It does have a very soft, semi-gritty kind of texture you expect from a glass pad. So it's kind of like a weird hybridized version of the two. It feels incredible in game. I really don't understand why it feels so good. Now, just to quickly preface, I did test this pad on a bunch of different sensitivities, a bunch of different DPIs, and across a bunch of different mice. I did test the mice at around 33 to 50 centimeter per 360 at 800 and 1600 DPI. I did the different DPIs because I wanted to see if there was going to be a difference in the tracking performance across different DPIs, but they actually stayed the same. Now, glass pads are more commonly tied and perform the best in high dynamic shooters like Overwatch, Fortnite, Apex. They don't generally perform that well in static games. While the VARMBLIXT did perform insanely well in high dynamic shooters like Bad Business, Overwatch, this pad also performed unusually well with Valorant, which is something I did not expect. When I used the Serapad Kin, which is designed to be a tack shooter mouse pad, I did notice a big buff in terms of like static tack shooter-esque performance, but the pad was still like kind of slow. It was like that kind of weird area where it was like fast and slow at the same time, where it still performed well, but I still did prefer the Serapad Kin to be for dynamic shooters. I still didn't really like it for static games just because the way I play. However, the VARMBLIXT plays amazingly well in Valorant. Like, I'll show you a couple clips of what I was doing, but like Valorant is a game I struggle to be consistent with a lot, and I haven't played Valorant in quite a while, and I used the VARMBLIXT, I popped into Valorant, I started grinding, and I was having some really good performance, but I did not expect. And it wasn't just isolated to Valorant as well. The static performance in Kovacs also took a huge jump as well, which I really was not expecting. Generally speaking, you would assume static performance would be better on a slower pad, but for my aim style, I did find the VARMBLIXT performed better in all the scenarios than I did feel like on the Serapad Kin. Again, that's isolated just to me. I'm not saying the Serapad Kin's a bad pad in any way, shape, or form. I just like the feeling of this pad more right now. But overall, the in-game performance was extremely good. I'm very happy with the performance, and honestly, it's really hard for me to not use this mouse pad because, of course, I'm working on other mousepad reviews, doing multiple at once, and it's so hard for me not to use it for VARMBLIXT because I keep wanting to go back to it, and I keep wanting to use it, and I keep having to use other pads. I have a feeling VARMBLIXT is going to be a mainstay on my desk for a long time unless something else comes up that I feel like I like better. But overall, the in-game performance is insanely good for something that's not supposed to be a mousepad. It honestly blows my mind how good it feels in game. One other thing I also wanted to talk about was the arm sleeve compatibility. Now, one thing that the Serapad Kin did really well is that because of the grittier surface on the Serapad Kin from the ceramics, it was a lot better in terms of bare arm usage where you wouldn't stick to the mouse pad as much. I'm actually very happy to say this is actually a very similar situation here. Obviously, there's a little bit more stickiness to the hand than there would have been on the Serapad Kin, but overall, I honestly think it's still completely usable without an arm sleeve. Now, personally speaking, I still do prefer the arm sleeve, and I did use this pad primarily with my 3 arm sleeves. I used my standard athletic sleeve, my Pulsar ES sleeve, and my Focus Pro sleeve. Overall, I felt like the Focus Pro sleeve performed the best out of all of them, and the actual friction on the surface is very minimal because it's not a very abrasive surface. It's like a soft grittiness, so it actually works really well with a lot of fabrics. But overall, the Focus Pro sleeve performed the best. Arm sleeve usage is definitely going to be recommended overall just because it is still a glass pad, but if you do want to use it without an arm sleeve, you can do that, though I would recommend getting an arm sleeve. Alrighty, now let's talk skateware. Now, this is one area where glass pads traditionally have a lot of problems because, again, rougher surfaces, harder surfaces do wear against softer PTFE skates a lot faster. And surprisingly, the skateware was actually not bad at all. Overall, I would say it's slightly lower than what was on the Serapad Kin. Of course, the Serapad Kin is a much more rough surface compared to the VARMBLIXT, but overall, I think it's actually completely fine. In like day-to-day use, I would say it only makes a difference of like you may have to change your skates like maybe 1 month less than you would have to on another pad. You will still have to definitely change your skates over time, 100%. One other pitfall of a glass pad, especially the VARMBLIXT, but any glass pad on the market right now or any hard pad, is that the effects of dust and cat hair and that kind of stuff are going to be definitely a bit of a problem. Just get a damp microfiber cloth and just wipe off the surface as best you can and then just air dry it. One thing I am potentially concerned about with the VARMBLIXT is the potential for the pad to quote unquote fill up. This is something I did notice in the Serapad Kin after a couple months of use, where if you do use bare arm, especially, or just your hand, your dead skin from your hand, that kind of stuff will eventually fill the surface layer and cause these kind of weird slow spots you kind of have to rub out with your hand. If you do notice any slow spots, I would just take your finger and just rub on the surface and see if anything comes off. If it does, I would just wipe it off with a microfiber cloth. I've only been using my pads for 30 days between the two of them, so I haven't noticed that issue so far, but I am using an arm sleeve and I am keeping the pad very clean. So this may be an issue that pops up in a couple months, similarly to what happened with the Serapad Kin, because I did not notice it initially. It only popped up like 6 or 7 months after I used it. Even if you do have a problem where the pad becomes really bogged down and you can't use it anymore, you can just buy another one and they're so cheap. So that's why I'm not going to knock it too much in terms of that, because again, it could just be a very isolated issue, but that is something I wanted to mention regardless, just again to be completely transparent with you guys for the review. One final note about the whole cleaning situation: be very careful not to use anything very abrasive on the surface. While it is glass, it is a very thin layer on the top of it, so be careful with what you're using. Don't use steel wool or anything like that. I would stick to soft sponges or again a wet microfiber cloth as your go-tos for cleaning the pad. Don't use anything abrasive on it because there's a good chance you could damage the surface. Before I get into my final thoughts, I did want to quickly clarify a couple things or reiterate some things I said before. Just because this is designed to be a serving tray, this is not designed to be a mouse pad. There is not going to be that level of QC that we expect on a professional grade mouse pad. Because of that, I cannot guarantee that a serving tray you buy from IKEA is going to have the same quality. I can't guarantee the etching is going to be the same. I can't guarantee the leveling is going to be the same. The surfacing may be different. There's a lot of other things that could be different. I could have just gotten insanely lucky and just gotten 2 different VARMBLIXTs from 2 different batches that were just perfect. If you do go to an IKEA to try one out, I highly recommend taking the tray out of the packaging. I would run your finger across the entire packaging to see if you feel any weird oddities in the actual surface, any kind of areas where the frosting isn't necessarily engraved properly. I'd recommend you just do that. I didn't do that when I went to buy my second unit because I didn't want to cherry pick my samples. So just note that if you do end up trying to VARMBLIXT it for yourself, your performance may be different than mine. And who knows, like the etching on the surface could be different on one pad to the other. Who knows? Because I don't know how IKEA is manufacturing these. Very unlikely that you are going to have severe problems like this because I feel like IKEA's manufacturing process is pretty similar for all of their glass because it's all the same thing. I don't know that for sure though, so I can't guarantee that. So again, your experience may be completely different from mine. I may have just gotten insanely lucky and gotten 2 that work as a mouse pad. So just to clarify that and before I go to my final thoughts. Now, one more thing I did want to mention just before we ended here is that if you do go to IKEA and you happen to not be able to find a VARMBLIXT, IKEA does sell other pieces of glass on their website that do look similar to the VARMBLIXT. However, they are different sizes and they're not ideally sized to be a mouse pad. I have not tested those pieces of glass yet, so I cannot say if they're going to be good for a mouse pad or not. If you guys want to see me go back to IKEA and buy more random stuff to try and make mouse pads out of it, sub to the channel, leave a like on the video. I mean, last time I was there, I'm not gonna lie, I almost bought an IKEA cutting board because the surface looked really smooth and I kind of wanted to try it as a mouse pad. If you guys want me to go back to IKEA to try more weird stuff from there and try and make mouse pads out of their stuff, by all means let me know. I'll be happy to do some more experimenting. Man, I still can't believe this is even happening. I cannot believe I'm sitting here recording a video. It's like, yeah, IKEA accidentally made a disgustingly good glass pad that outperforms some of the other mouse pads on the market. I can't believe I'm saying that. And it's so weird because IKEA has been absolutely killing it in the mouse space lately. The Lens Splitter Black and the Lens Splitter Platter are 2 of my favorite mouse pads because I love the performance on both of those. I do wish they were larger, but of course they are still disgustingly good pads for the price. And considering that the IKEA's other 2 budget pads punch well above their weight in performance, and then IKEA goes and accidentally makes a serving tray that doubles as one of the best mouse pads I've ever used in my life is just insane to me. I still can't believe this is even happening, but I mean, here we are. Do I recommend you go to an IKEA, buy a VARMBLIXT serving tray, modify it, and turn it into a glass pad? Absolutely. Why not? If you're considering going into a glass pad and you want to try and test something out in the meantime just to see if you like the performance of it, I'd highly recommend you get one, try it, and hey, you may even like the VARMBLIXT more than whatever glass pad you decide to get after that, because again, the performance is so good. Like, I keep wanting to use the VARMBLIXT VARMBLIXT over everything else I have, over all the peripherals I have and all the other mouse pads I have. I keep wanting to use the VARMBLIXT over everything, which is just insane because it's so much cheaper. It blows my mind. But overall, try it out, see what happens. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you can return it to IKEA and try something else. Thank you again for watching. I greatly appreciate it. As I mentioned before, if you are interested in checking out some other IKEA pads that I highly recommend myself because I've used both of them for quite a long time, the IKEA Lens Explorer Black and Pattern are two of my favorite mouse pads. If you guys do want to check out my reviews of those, they'll be pinned up at the end of this video for you guys to check out. Thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I'll catch you guys in the next video. And IKEA, if you end up making these glass pads, I expect some royalties. All right, catch you guys in the next one. Peace.